You're fine with that. That's what you really need. You need it. Yeah. Right. Do we use a microphone or no?
Yes.
For me, do we use a microphone for the room? Because we got a lot of devotees.
Yeah. Oh.
Jaya. Oops. Get that set up. Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Behari. Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Behari. Anamanaba, Jaya Padova Janabanava So Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Paracharya also Satashi Srimad is divine grace. Abhaya Chananada Vidana Goswami Shilpa Iskan founder Acharya Shilpa Kijaya Nantakoti Moisnam Namacharya Shilopeda Stakur Kijaya Say Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidway the Gadad Ha Shivasati Ho Nigajaya Shri Radha Krishna Gopikopnath Sai Makunda Giri Govardhan Kijay Vrindav Kijay Churna Jagannath Swami Kijay Munamai Kijay Shrimati Galasi Devi Kijay Samit Bhakta Vrind Kijay Gaur Premananda. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Shrabhu Bhat Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna. Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami. Stay Saraswati David. Johnny Shishin. Paschacha Deja Tarane. So we're reading from Bhagavatam. Who knows where? Who has the Bhagavatam? I don't have it memorized yet. So just give me a. Yep. So where are we reading from? 12?
Yeah.
12. Okay, we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 16th chapter, text 12. This is about King Citraketu meets the Lord. Wow. Very important. Okay, there's no purports for a few texts here. Anyway. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You have it written somewhere? Or no. Can the devotees repeat it? No, I don't have it written. No. Okay. Does anyone have devices where they have the Bhagavatam? No. Then you can repeat after me. It's again, it's 6, 16, 12. 6, 16, 12 on your mobile phones, and those who were fortunate to have the Bhagavatam on your phones can repeat. Shri Badarayane Ruvacha. Iti Udirya Gato Jivo Yatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Amuchu Shukam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalang Shivadarayane Ruvacha Ichudirya Gato Jevo Gatayas Tasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam Shivadarayane Ruvacha Ityudirya Gato Jevo Yatayastasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam Sribadrayane Ruvacha Ichudirya Gato Jevo Jatayastasya Te Tada Vismita Mumuchu Shokam Chitvatma Sneha Shrinkalam. Okay, anyone?
Vismita Mumucha Shokam Shrinkana
Sripadarayaniruvacha Ityudiryagato jivo Yatayasasyate tada Vismita mumuchushtokan Sitvatmasneha sringhalam
Ivadaraniruvacha Yodiriyakato jivo Atayastasya te tada Ishmita mumuchuslokam Hitvatma sneha shrinkhalam
Okay, ladies. Right? Shri Badarayani Uvacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Iti, in this way, Udirya, speaking, Gata, went, Jiva, the living entity, who had appeared as the son of Maharaja Citraketu. Jataya, the relatives and family members. Tasha, of him. Te, they. Tada, at that time. Vismita, being astonished. Wamuchu, gave up. Shokam, lamentation. Chitva, cutting off. Atmasneha, of affection due to a relationship. Shrinkalang, the iron shackles. The translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued. No, we'll do it responsibly in a second. When the conditioned soul, Jiva, in the form of Maharaj Citraketu's son, had spoken in this way, and then left, Citraketu and the other relatives of the dead son were all astonished. Thus they cut off the shackles of their affection, which was due to their relationship with him, and gave up their lamentations. You can repeat. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued. When the conditioned soul Jiva, in the form of Maharaj Citraketu's son, had spoken in this way, and then left, Citraketu and the other relatives of the dead son were all astonished. Thus they cut off all the shackles of their affection, which was due to their relationship with him, and gave up their lamentation. And so, because I guess some of you are joining us for the first time, I guess I'll comment on this first rather than go ahead, if that's all right. So again, the verse, Sri Bharani Vaksha, Ichidirya Gato Jiva Gyataya Statsate Tada, Vismata Vuchu, Shokam, Chitva Ma Sneha, Shrinkana. So Gana Timiranda Shah. Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is the famous story of Citraketus. And I want to explain it in terms of fate, astrology, what's predicted for you, so we can all understand this underlying message of this particular part of the story. So, all of us, of course, we're not Krishna conscious, we have karma, and we're meant to have certain things in this lifetime. And we're meant not to have certain things in this lifetime based upon that karma. And if you're interested, you consult your horoscope, your astrology, and see, what you're meant to have and what you're not meant to have. But many of us, we want to have things that we're not meant to have. And even Krishna conscious people sometimes want to have things they're not meant to have, not realizing that Krishna says that everybody, everyone has a quota. A quota means Krishna has given you what you need. And Krishna has given you what you're supposed to have, whether it's through the law of karma, whether it's Krishna directly in the case of the devotee. And so we find that if we try to endeavor for things we're not supposed to have, it doesn't work. Not only doesn't it work, we get frustrated, and hopefully we become detached. So that's the story right here. Citraketus. Okay, go back a little bit. Citraketus really wanted to have a son. He's king. And the reason they want to have a son, you have a son too. That's nice. The reason he wanted to have a son is because kings really should have a son. And the reason kings should really have a son is because of this principle, what's called primogeniture, which means that your eldest son takes over the kingdom, if he's qualified. If he's not qualified, it goes to number 2. Let's give an example of that. In the case of, let us say, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was not qualified because he was blind. And kings at that time, in order to be kings, they had to fight in the battlefield. And you can't really fight in the battlefield too well if you can't see your enemies. Makes sense. And so, therefore, it was determined that Pandu, the younger son, was going to become the king. Of course, eventually that didn't work out when Pandu died prematurely, but that's a different story. So here's Citraketus. King Citraketus, he really wants to have a son. And he's not facing fate. He doesn't understand that fate doesn't want him to have a son. So what happens is he keeps trying by marrying different wives. He's thinking, it's the wife's fault. So he goes, 1 wife, 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives. I can't reach the end of it because it's 10 million. What's the population of Finland?
5.5.
So roughly double the population of Finland. Don't try that at home. Actually, one's meant to have 1 wife. like Lord Ramchandra is the perfect example because, what was it? Eka Patni Vrata, one wife, one arrow, one word. That's Lord Ramchandra. Now you look at Krishna, and say, what about Krishna? 16,108. It wasn't as many as Citraketus, but what about Krishna? Well, Krishna sets a really bad example for us. We were just talking about this the other day in class. That Krishna in the Gita, what does he say? Yad yada charati shreshtas tatati veturo janaha. He says that great people set an example and everybody follows. But Krishna doesn't follow that injunction himself. You know, dancing with other people's wives in the middle of the night, don't do that. 16,000. Of course, you can marry 16,108 wives if you like, if each and every one has a house, has a palace, has their own car, right? And you can divide yourself up to be with each and every one of them simultaneously. But if you can't divide yourself up even once, you stay with one wife. One husband, too. Okay. So, anyway, so Citraketus, he doesn't realize 10 million wives. Can you imagine? Phew, really endeavored. It's just like even 2 or 3. And actually, you see in practically every case in the Mahabharata where people had more than one wife, there was trouble. Actually, it's an interesting Sanskrit word. Sapatni means, with wives or many wives. And sapatnya means with one's enemy. Did you know that? You think of a play on words in Sanskrit. Isn't it? Think about it. So, but he didn't understand his fate. Now, along comes Angira Rishi. So you have Angira Rishi. And he pays a visit to Citraketus. And he sees Citraketus lamenting and lamenting and lamenting. And, there's some nice words in the beginning. How you doing, Prabhu? I'm doing fine. Take some prasadam. But after that, he said, what's the problem, Citraketus? Citraketus says, I don't have a son. And basically, Angira is telling him, you're not supposed to have a son. It's not there in the stars. But he says, I really want a son. I want a son. I want a son. You get in trouble by asking for something too much. Just like the story of Draupadi in her past life. Everybody knows that story. Draupadi, before she became Draupadi, and had 5 husbands. Also, don't try that. In her previous life, she couldn't get a husband. It wasn't her karma or whatever. And she thought, well, let me go to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva grants benedictions. He's Ashutosh. He's easily pleased, easily angered. So she goes to Lord Shiva, my dear Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva appears. Lord Shiva appears. And he says, what do you want, my dear devotee? And she says, I want a husband. Ooh, I want a husband. 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 And he says, okay. 6 requests, 6 husbands. He says, that's not what she's, he says, that's not, I'm 5, sorry. That's 5. Yeah, I got 1 more. 5 more. 5. So, yeah, I said 6 times. But anyway, so I want a husband 5 times. And he says, you get 5 of them. And she says, that's not what I meant. And he says, that's all right. You asked 5 times. That's what you get. And so eventually in the next life, she gets 5 husbands. So be careful what you ask for. Or at least make sure you look at the fine print in the contract when you ask for something. So anyway, so continuing with Citraketus. So Citraketus, he just didn't accept the sage's instruction. The sage said, all right, I'll benedict you. You can have a child. but his name will be Harsha Shoka, which means, happiness and lamentation. So Citraketus was so much in my, he thought happiness, lamentation. Everybody's like that. You can't have children who don't give you some lamentation sometimes. Just like when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I gave my parents a tremendous amount of lamentation. Isn't it? How could my son do that to me? After all I've done. So 50 years of lamentation. And in this way, they were Krishna conscious, thinking of me for 50 years until they passed away. So anyway, so Citraketus is blessed like this. And he has his favorite wife, whose name is Krita. And Krita gives birth to a little baby boy. And he's really cute. And Citraketus is so happy that he's going around, chanting the Maha Mantra, whatever. And he doesn't pay any attention to any of his other wives. Because Citraketus is the one who gave birth to this nice little boy. And so all the other wives, are they happy with this? No. They are envious. So what happens is they make a plan to poison the little kid. They give him poison. Kid dies. And they're all crying, including the wives who poisoned the little kid, because they're making believe. And so the whole palace is filled with 10 million ladies crying. Oh my God. I wouldn't want to visit that palace. It's intense. Even one little baby crying drives me crazy. And sometimes I'm getting an airplane, and then the lady with the baby sitting right next to me, and he cries through the whole trip, testing my Krishna consciousness. Vacho Begum, Manasa Krota Begum. The statement is, once you control his tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, and words. So we're controlled in that way. So anyway, 10 million, wives crying. Citraketus even crying. Then who comes along? But Narada Muni with Angira. And Narada Muni is actually meant to preach to people about renunciation. Usually he's not blessing people, to have certain material things. Usually he's not doing that. Even sometimes he curses people so they become more detached, like in the case Manigriva Nalakuvara, right? They were two, this is a story in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. They were two young men, the sons of Kuvera, and they were having a good time. Kuvera, of course, is the treasurer of the temple. No, not demigods. And I guess he takes some of the money and slips it to his sons. So they became enamored, by their position, and they were just having a good time in the celestial, the heavenly kanjis. And they are having a good time with some girls. And they were doing things without their clothes. There's like one time I came to Finland, I think there was a section of the bay where people were naked or something like that. Remember, I'm walking on it. They said, don't go there. These people don't have any clothes there. Do you know where that is? It's someplace. Thank God you don't know where it is. What? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember walking, just taking a nice japa walk. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you don't want to go there. I said, thank you for warning me. So anyway, they were bathing completely naked, whatever they were doing, And Narada Muni comes along, and the boys are so intoxicated, they didn't cover themselves. The girl had more intelligence. They covered themselves. And the boys just like, hi, Narada. And Narada said, you're like trees, mode of ignorance. So therefore, you should become trees. You curse them, become trees. But that curse was for their blessing. Because eventually they became trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and Krishna knocked them down. And they saw Krishna and they became purified. So when the great sages curse, it's a blessing. So Narada Muni, he's really into renunciation. Remember that. He didn't come previously to bless Citraketu to have a son. But he came when Citraketu was ready to become renounced. Really into renunciation. There's another story in the Bhagavatam. Don't mess with Narada Muni. That don't let Narada Muni see your sons. So keep him away. Keep me away from your son. You die.
Yeah.
So there's another story that a really interesting story in the Bhagavatam, where there were these sons of Daksha. Daksha, of course, is a great Prajapati. And Prajapati means someone who likes, the word Daksha means expert. So he's expert at having children. That was his field, his business. So he was given that business by Lord Brahma. It wasn't his fault. But he became materially attached. So Daksha, this expert in having children, decided to have a lot of children. Actually, 10,000 children. Oh my God. They were called the Haryashvas. He had 10,000 children at one time. Phew. These people were quite expert at doing things at that time. So he had 10,000 children. Okay, boys. And he thought, I want my children to also become good parents like me. Because, he wanted to enjoy what? Grandchildren. You know how it is, don't it? Grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And your whole life is just spent, when you get older, just visiting your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. And maybe sometimes you distribute books. That's Krishna conscious vanaprastha. Facetiously, I'm speaking, jokingly. So he wanted his children to follow in the family business, which is having children. And he said, you should perform austerities to become good fathers. So they performing austerities. Who comes along but Narada Muni and says, what the heck are you doing? They said, we're following the order of our father. And Narada Muni says, do you know who your real father is? Of Krishna, of course. And Guru Maharaj. So anyway, and then he convinces them, by telling them different metaphors and stories, he convinces them to renounce. Don't mess with Narada Muni. So they renounce everything, take sannyas. Their father is really upset, but he thinks, I can have more kids. So what happens is he decides only 1,000 this time. The Savalashvas, 1,000 kids. And guess what? Narada Muni plays his trick and does the same thing. And they also renounce. And Daksha, this expert father, is so upset that he curses Narada Muni. And he says, Narada Muni, you shall never be able to stay in one place for very long. And Narada Muni says, Jai, Haribol. Because for a sannyasi, it's a benediction, because you never get attached. Like you stay in one place, after a while, you think, oh, this is my bed, right? My table, my bed, my house, my. And that's the opposite of Krishna consciousness. Because if you really want to go back to Godhead, you have to understand what? Nothing is yours. Nirmana moha jitta sangha dosha vyatmanacha. Vinivrita kama. Lambar vimuktar supaduka sangar kachancha mudal. Padam avyam tad, right? So that's, of course, I know that's heavy for all of you. Think about it. Oh no, why do we invite the sannyasi here? He's giving a sannyas class today. Anyway, so not really, we like good grahasas, raise children. And as soon as their children grow up, they belong to us. But they take care of the difficult part. You understand? Yeah. Raise your children, educate them. Okay, coming with us. Like Lord Nityananda, he was raised by his father, Hridai Pandit sannyasi, took him away. Madhvacharya, same thing. He took sannyas at 9. I don't think Gadai's ready for it. So, in any case, so Narada Muni gets cursed, and he likes that curse. Also, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got cursed, not for the same purpose, to be kicked out of his home. And also Prabhupada got cursed by the parents. This is another situation, by the parents of his disciples. Prabhupada said that. He said, the parents of my disciples have cursed me to not be able to remain any place. So even though I have so many temples and palaces around the world, I can't stay in any of them. I have to keep traveling. And Prabhupada said he's transferring that curse to his disciples, like me. So anyway, so getting back to the story. So, story within the story. So Narada Muni gets cursed. And Daksha decides, well, no more sons for me, because they're all going to get ruined by this Narada Muni character. And so then he decides to have daughters, and it's a different story. So, getting back to the story of Citraketu. So Citraketu, as the dead son, Narada Muni comes. And Narada Muni preaches him in a very interesting way. Narada Muni has very interesting ways of preaching. He doesn't always give people the sauce. You know the sauce? You're in Maya. That's the sauce. This is what we call the sauce. You ever heard of that before? The sauce. You're in Maya. Wake up. You're an illusion. Don't lament. So instead, he has this wonderful experience he gives Citraketu. He brings the sun back to life. And this is what we're reading right now. And the sun starts preaching. So no one can get angry with Narada Muni. Because he uses a different technique. This is the expertise of a preacher. Not that you can do that. You can't bring someone back to life. But the expertise to know how to present something to someone, the Krishna conscious philosophy to someone, so that they won't get offended or won't get upset. This, of course, is in relationship to the offense on chanting, which we talked about yesterday, preaching the glories of the Lord to those who are faithless. So before we explain Krishna consciousness to someone, we should understand who we're speaking to, how much they can take, and then present it in such a way that they can easily digest it. So what Narada Muni does, brings the kid back to life, and the kid starts preaching. And then kid, as we're going to hear here, he dies again and goes on to his next life. Interesting preaching. Similar thing happened in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was having his kirtan in the house of Srivastava Sangha. While they were having the kirtan, Srivastava Kaur's son passed away. And when he passed away, Srivastava Kaur's wife, she was crying. And Srivastava Kaur said, why are you crying? And she said, your son passed away. And he said, you want to disturb Lord Chaitanya's kirtan? See how detached he was. God. If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. It's tough person, you know. And she just held her tears back. Then after the kirtan was over, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, something happened here. And Srivas Thakur said, just something minor. And he said, just my son passed away. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, why didn't you stop the kirtan? And Srivas Thakur said, I didn't want to disturb your ecstasy. So anyway, so they went to the room where the son's body was. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touches his body and says, why did you leave Srivas Thakur? And then the son sits up again, starts preaching. He basically says, you know, so many lifetimes I've passed, but I passed away during the kirtan. So let me go back to Godhead. Don't keep me here. That's funny. Let me go back to God. So I think it's a similar story. So many related stories of how one king was brought back to life. You know the story? And the king said, I don't want to be brought back to life. It's the story of King Nimi. King Nimi was very interesting. He got cursed by his guru. He got an angry guru. I don't get angry. Got angry. So his guru was Vishishta Muni. And Vishishta Muni said to King Nimi that, can you wait to do a sacrifice? Because I have another sacrifice planned with the demigods. And so when you spend time with the demigods, you know, a few moments with the demigods, that's like a lot of time on the earth planet, you know, comparative time sequences. And so King Nimi was thinking, I'm not going to wait till Guru Maharaj comes back. I'm going to do the Harinam Kirtan. Like you all do Harinam Kirtan. So I'm going to do Harinam Kirtan, and Guru will be all right. So the Guru comes back, and he finds his disciple has done the Harinam without him. So anyway, and the Guru gets very angry. The Guru says, because you did the sacrifice without me, I curse you to become near Deha, without a body. And the disciple, King Nimi, gives him some Guru Dakshin at that point. He says, I also curse you. That's his donation to the Guru. I curse you to become near Deha, Guru Dev. You should die too. Nice reciprocation between Guru and disciple, isn't it? Tadvini, Pranipatena, Pranipatena, Sevaya. So, you know, anyway, nice. So the Guru dies, but he later comes back in a different way through an interesting picture. And disciple dies, and the sages put his body, King Nimi's body, in a vat of oil to preserve it till the end of the sacrifice, so they could properly do the Adyeshti ceremony, the funeral ceremony. So the end of the ceremony, demigods come down, and they say to the sages, what do you want? Ask for something, and we'll grant it. And they said, we want King Nimi to come back to life. And demigods say, no problem, we can do this. So King Nimi sits up out of the battle. And he says, I don't want to come back to life. I want to go back to home, back to God. Interesting story, isn't it? So anyway, so we have these particular occasions where people are brought back to life. So getting back to the story of Citraketu, the son preaches. Citraketu understands exactly what the philosophy is, has realization through direct experience, pratyaksha bhagavam dharma, shushakam kartamamya. And guess what? Then he goes on Sankirtan. It's a Sankirtan story. And he dedicates his life to chanting the holy name. Of course, he has a little problems later on in Sankirtan, but that's a different part of the story that we won't tell today. So So, any questions or comments? Questions or comments about anything I mentioned? Yeah,
I just had a thought. Thank you for the class.
yeah,
There's this thought because this language is something to but there is this harsha shoka,
yeah,
a material happiness we see as on the path of devotion, we see as actually not very all and giving misery, as we know, this misery. So there is this harsha happiness.
I like to be
word,
happy too.
Harsh.
Yeah,
So in
harsh,
English, there is harsh.
harsh,
Yeah.
but it means something good, and that's good. But let me make a little adjustment to that. Prabhupada said we should be happy in devotional service. Yeah, so we take the happiness. Yeah, sometimes, but we take the happiness and distress as uh, stepping stones to help us become Krishna conscious. You know, we're not like Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti prayed for more distress. So, Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru, so she could become more detached from this world. But Prabhupada instructed us when a devotee asked him, should we pray like Queen Kunti for more distress? Prabhupada said, no. We shouldn't pray for more distress. We should pray to take shelter of Krishna. And happiness comes. Sitoshna Sukha Agam Mahapoyam Just Tamsatiksha Bharata, isn't it? Mantras Barshas. That's one of the first lessons. That whether we have happiness or distress, we tolerate Tamsatiksha Bharata. Mantras happiness, distress, summer and winter, cold, rain, whatever. One tolerates these things. And actually, the first lesson taught by Lord Kapiladeva in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is Titikshila, tolerate. But tolerate, why? Titikshila korunika, to be merciful to others. So our method of Krishna becoming Krishna conscious is not exactly the same as Queen Kunti had. Our method of becoming Krishna conscious is Tatikshava karunika, be merciful to others and sharing Krishna consciousness with others through the process of Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan. That means Krishna Katha, Prasadam distribution, and of course, chanting, public chanting, and in general, bringing people to Krishna consciousness. So, I do not pray for distress. In fact, I pray that Krishna won't give me distress. I have to be honest. I mean, about 3 or 4 years ago, I had kidney stones. And many of us ever had kidney stones. They know that they're very painful. So basically, all I could do was chant Krishna's name. Not even the whole Maha Mantra. It was just like, Krishna, 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 Krishna for several days. I became purified. Anyways, don't ask for it. But the whole time I was saying, Krishna, take it away already. Take it away enough, uncle. You know, as someone, sometimes, the kids, they play with each other and say uncle, say, I surrender. Okay, Krishna, I surrender. Take away the pain. Enough is enough. I will chant nicely. I will behave myself. So, anyway, I like happiness better. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But whatever Krishna sends is, yeah, the point you're making is good. Because whatever Krishna sends is what's meant to happen or what we're meant to experience. So, as Krishna says in the Gita, 6:30 in the Gita, one should see Yomam Pashati Sarvatra Sabram Chamai Pashati Tasham Apashami Satramena Pranashati. One should see Krishna in everything and everywhere. So when something happens to us, happiness or distress, it's Krishna putting us in that circumstance. And then we have to think, why did Krishna put us in this circumstance? What is the purpose? And how does Krishna want us to act in response to that circumstance? So,
Yeah, and then you said that our method is not to suffer, but it's to help others to
yeah,
live different. So why is in our method, why is it that this the compassion to others is so important in our movement? Why is this the root of that? Empathy and
why? Because first of all, Krishna is more pleased if we serve his children, and everyone's Krishna's child, just like an ordinary man, especially the good children, devotees. An ordinary man is very pleased. Like if I go up to Gadai there and I say, "What a nice son! He's the best kid I've ever met." Then the Acharya will say, "Well, what a good guru he is." And Anuradha will say, "Oh, we picked the right guy." But if I go up to someone and say, "He's ugly," that means got to find a new guru. So no, but he's nice looking. He's very nice. But so because everyone is Krishna's part and parcel, and Krishna's main desire or anxiety, let's say anxiety is, what's Krishna's anxiety? That his part and parcel, that his children, sons and daughters, are here in this world and they're not with him. He's an anxiety. In the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's that story of Gopakumar. And Krishna actually states in that story that I was in anxiety basically, wondering when you were going to come back to me. This is Gopakumar who came to Krishna in the spiritual world, finally realizing his spiritual identity, Krishna embracing him, Krishna fainting when he finally came back. Krishna himself was so happy that what? He fainted. And everyone thought that Krishna had some disease or been poisoned or something like that by Gopakumar. But Krishna fainted because he was so happy. And Krishna reveals, I was wondering when you were going to come back to me. And I was making plans. And I decided, even though you didn't want to come back to me, I would violate my own rules and become your guru. Interesting, isn't it? So Prabhupada elsewhere comments, because Prabhupada didn't translate the Brihad Bhagavatam. That was translated by Gopi Purana and unapproval. Prabhupada elsewhere comments that Krishna is an anxiety, and those who relieve his anxiety become most dear to him. That's one reason why sharing Krishna consciousness is so important, because it's the most pleasing activity. Krishna says, and the Gita also, one who teaches this Bhagavad Gita to his devotees, but I think everybody's his devotee, as I mentioned yesterday afternoon, that night, that everyone has Krishna praying. It's just that we've forgotten it. So everyone is Krishna's devotee. So Krishna says, one who teaches this Bhagavad Gita to his devotees is most dear to him. And there will never be one more dear to him than he or she who teaches this Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Amazing. So that's one reason. Another reason why compassion is so important is that yastu sarvani bhutani atmana evanu pashati sarvabhuteshu chapalam tato is that we're all brothers and sisters. We're all connected. We're all the same family, right? When you see that we're basically connected like that, it's so important to be approaching those, which means everybody you're connected to in a family relationship, isn't it? A spiritual family relationship. Everyone is part of our spiritual family in a larger context, a larger thing. So does that explain why it's so important? Yeah, it's the most important activity. I mean, first of all, you gotta have the foundation of chanting Hare Krishna. You have to have the foundation of following the rules and regulations of having good sadhana. But apart from that, that's the foundation. Apart from that, one should dedicate their life for the welfare of others. And that's the most pleasing thing. Isn't it? So, other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I have a 7-year-old niece,
That's nice.
and every time I see her, I get into two different mindsets. The Jnani detached side is, okay, I'm so attached to this person because it has a relationship with the body.
Uh-huh.
And then the other side is like, oh, well, she's so nice, she's the best. I love her so much. And so I was just wondering, what's the best way to deal with these two types of mindsets?
I think the attachment can be transformed, which is interesting. Because when we try to give up our attachment to different things, we become more attached. Because we're thinking about the thing we want to become detached from more than we were thinking about before. It's interesting. Just like, I often see sometimes brahmacharis, they think, well, they should think, but they talk more about becoming detached from ladies than householders talk about. But they talk more about ladies, about Maya. As soon as you designate someone as a Maya Devi, so many Maya Devis in this room. Sorry. Then you actually think of the person in those terms and you become more attached. Anyway, I think you understand what I'm talking about. So instead, if there is some attachment there, then you transform that attachment into something spiritual by thinking of the spiritual welfare of that particular individual. What is the best thing that Krishna conscious wise, even material, for that particular niche you were talking about? How to help them become Krishna conscious. And by doing that, then you have the right consciousness. We're not talking about Krishna conscious, we don't advocate like absolute detachment like the Mayavadis have. That sort of detachment is the opposite side of the coin of attachment. So instead, we should be thinking, how can I transform my attachment and think of helping that particular individual, that, girls, how to become Krishna conscious. And that should be done in every relationship that we have. Instead of thinking yourself or seeing seeing yourself as the enjoyer of that relationship, see yourself as a servant of that relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That Krishna sent you this particular relationship, and Krishna wants you to help. Yeah, China.
Is there a way to transform the opposite, like in Citraketus story? There was instance who was the one baby who got pregnant from the others.
Yeah, they became transformed. They actually became compassionate when they heard the child preaching.
Yeah, but I mean, like deliberately, if I'm noticing myself, like
Oh, if you have some envy,
yeah,
the way that I would deal with it, it would be to understand that, again, that is a Upanishad verse. Ishavashamidam sarvam, the verse that can judge Jagat. that everybody has his quota. Krishna, it's come from Krishna. Krishna, let's say you wish, let's say you were a lady and one of the wives of Citraketus didn't have the kid. That's her quota. Understand it from a Krishna conscious perspective. That person is supposed to have that particular opulence or child or whatever. And that's how I would look at it. Just say that's how we should look at it, to see different, some devotees may chant better than us, or speak better than us, or whatever, do more yoga postures than us. That's not hard with me. So just like we have my disciple Gokul Chandra, who does so many yoga postures, he broke the database. Database. Anyway, I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm sitting there, oh my God, why isn't Krishna giving that to me? I'm envious, not that envious. But I'm appreciative how Krishna has empowered him in that particular way. That's his quota. And I have my quota. And you have your quota. That's all. And the interesting thing about your quota, Krishna will take it away anyway, even if it is your quota. Isn't it? And if you get too attached to it, Krishna says, Yashaham anugrinami harishke tajanam shanai. I'm going to take it away sooner. But sooner or later, right? Time factor. Kalo asmi. Sooner or later, everything's taken away. You may be the richest man in the world. Who is that? I don't mention his name. I don't want to hear it. And one day, he's going to leave the world naked like everybody else. So it's all these opulences that Krishna may have, wealth, strength, fame, whatever, are all just lent by Krishna. Isn't it? There was one famous person years ago, he was a radio personality, he says, intelligence on loan from God. So try to understand that. God is loaning you something, God is loaning me something, but everything is Krishna's. So isn't that the way I would look at it? That's the way Krishna, that's a Krishna conscious perspective. That's why Krishna wants you to have a son. That's fine. Right? I mean, it's interesting, it's a funny story, and then we'll take a question. Once upon a time, Prabhupada told the story of Shakshi Gopal. Shakshi Gopal is a deity that walked all the way across India to witness a marriage promise because this younger Brahmin, who Prabhupada said was a pure devotee, begged the deity to walk across India so he could get married to the girl he wanted to marry. I'm not going to tell the whole story. I'm just taking it very short for him. And so Prabhupada was telling this story, a nice story. The deity walks all the way across India, witnesses a marriage promise that old Brahmin made to a young Brahmin. So one sannyasi was sitting there, and he said to Prabhupada, if this younger Brahmin was such a pure devotee, why did he want to get married? I said it very, but he was joking. It's one of my god friends. He said, why do you want to get married as a pure devotee? Why don't you just chant Hare Krishna and be happy? Prabhupada looked at him and he said, because no one would have you. In other words, it wasn't your quota. You're speaking like that. So, I mean, it's a funny story, but it indicates that everybody has their own quota. And we respect it. One person is meant to be rich, another person is meant to be poor. One person is meant to be strong, another person is meant to be weak. And whatever it is, It's the best thing for you. Because it's Krishna's arrangement. Krishna, see Krishna everywhere, see Krishna in everything. And understand that is the best possible situation and make the best use of it in Krishna consciousness. However, don't blame Krishna for your things, your foolishness. Because if you do something stupid, I mean, I'll tell you something stupid I did. Talk about my own faults. So about 3 years ago, I got a new car. And I thought, let me enjoy. It's done. Now blame Krishna for this. So again, went on the road, and I thought, wow, see how fast I can go. Put my pedal to the metal. You know what that means? Pedal to the metal. He's a gas pedal. I still drive. And I think, this is cool. And then I saw some red lights behind me. Krishna's mercy. No, it was my foolishness. So I can't say, Krishna arranged all this for my purification. No, I am stupid and I made a mistake. So in certain circumstances where you have control of your situation, don't blame it on Krishna. Don't think that Krishna's make you anxious. Sometimes you do it. It's your fault. So yeah, that's the solve your question.
I have some follow-up questions of envy, because this story of Citraketus wives illustrates that this envy is like there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So they went on to poison the child.
Yeah.
That's like a terrible deed.
Right.
So if one is kind of grasped by envy, there's a lot of energy that is supposed to go somewhere. So in such a situation, it might not help to read Ishopanishad, but one should kind of find out where to put that energy, like in Krishna conscious way.
But first play a game of soccer or something like that. Football. Work it out.
Digging holes.
Yeah. I would say if there's a lot of pent up energy, then do something like get a punching bag or something like that. I mean, there's physiological ways to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that the modern life is getting more like mental.
Yeah, it's more mental. Yeah.
Not really doing so much. So
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there has to be some physical, but usually we should be able to catch it before it gets to that point of energy. There's different stages. One time I was studying about, anger in family life. Why? Because, I counsel people. So sometimes there's, anyway, anger, yelling, screaming, other things that happen. And it's like, there's like a curve that goes up. In the beginning, you catch it in the beginning before it goes up. Understanding that, that can be done mentally, that understanding that, or psychologically, understanding this is not an appropriate thought. But envy builds up it's a type of, again, Krishna in the Gita says, Jayato Vishakpul Samsangos Tesha Pajayate. When you contemplate something more and more, he has this or she has that, and then you think about it, you obsess on it, then the energy builds up, and then you have to do something about it.
And the envy is also a nature that you kind of avoid confronting it.
Yes.
Like lying to yourself, like I'm not envious, but actually I am.
Yes, be honest with yourself. That's a very good point. Self-honesty is very difficult. To admit one's own faults, even to oneself, what to speak of to others. It's very, very difficult. So yeah, I am experiencing this emotion, which we term envy. And basically to try to understand, I mean, if you really want to go deeper, you can use what I teach in empathic communication, which is try to understand that which need of mine is unfulfilled, and then connect that particular feeling to an unfulfilled need. But that's a little complicated subject matter for class. But yes, if one has a lot of energy, go out there and do something physical, because it's going to be destructive to the body and the mind. So, any other questions? Comments? Yes. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
So same way, how do we know what of the things that we were given we should tolerate and what do we know that we shouldn't?
All right. Yeah, obviously we should make some endeavor. But there's this principle, prayasas. Anyone know that verse? Achahara prayasas cha prajapam niyamakaha. You know that verse? There's a question of over endeavoring. So let's say Citraketus, in that particular example. He had a wife, no child. Okay, he's a king, he can marry more. You know, in those days, they're allowed. 2, 3, okay. Yeah, maybe Krishna doesn't want him to have a wife after 3. You understand? So you don't want to over endeavor. You make an endeavor for something. Let's say you want to make, let's say Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada had this idea before he came to the West, when he had his business, to do his business to make money so he could print books and carry out his spiritual master's order. Actually, everything Prabhupada did was to carry out the order of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, even in household life. Everything Prabhupada did. So he was thinking, business will enable me to do that. So he tries, and he tries, and it's unsuccessful. Gives it up. No over endeavor, no going crazy. You understand? Also, he tried with his wife to have her become Krishna conscious. He tried, and she sold his Bhagavatams for tea biscuits. She interfered with his preaching. She told him she would rather have tea than him. Can you imagine that? I said, yeah, I'd rather have tea than you. And he tries, and he tries, and he tries, and he tries. And you realize after a while, where does that song go? Can't get no satisfaction. Anyway, you ever heard that song? Can't get no satisfaction. I ain't trying. So you try to do things. Even let's say one has some disease. You go to the doctor. You try to cure the disease. But after a while, you keep trying and trying and trying. Well, maybe Krishna wants me to go back to Godhead in a certain way, right? So that's the point of over endeavor. Yes, you should try. Unless Krishna comes down and says, I don't want you to do this. That is very rare. Very rare that Krishna will come down. I wouldn't rely so much on horoscopes. They tend to be wrong. Especially in the case of Krishna consciousness. When one takes up Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says the stars change, the lines on your palms change every time you chant and dance. That's the benefit of Harinam Ruchi. You got good lines on your palm. We have to check your lines later on. So anyway, I wouldn't take it so seriously. I'll tell you one instance of astrology. I had one really good astrologer. I think knew everything about my life. He said, you're going to die when you're 50, 55. Okay. So I was getting ready. 1 year left. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Here's my will. I leave everything to Acharya. No, no. Go to the temple. Everything to the temple. I said, saying my last goodbyes to everybody. I'm exaggerating, of course. Goodbye. This is my last year. I'm going to go overdone. So 50, 51. What happened? Disappointed. I'm still around. And I'm getting old. Oh my God. So don't want that to happen. So anyway, who knows? And then, recently I went to another astrologer. He said, you're going to live to 120. I said, oh my God, I don't want that. Can you imagine, someone carry me around in a basket? Like the, anyway, it's interesting. Sometimes the mothers carry their child like in a pouch. So they'll have to carry me like that too. What is it? Attachment guru instead of attachment parenting. Anyway, so I'll be in Acharya's lap like that. So basically, I don't place much stock in astrology. We may consult, and consulting with other Vaishnavas is actually very good too. Do you think this would be a good thing for me? And also understanding what psychophysical nature, that's part of Varnashram. Am I a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra? So, there are some common sense things you can do to understand. But sometimes Krishna just doesn't want you to do something. And then sometimes Krishna will just shower you with things like Prabhupada said, Prabhupada said his father told him that Krishna has 10 hands and 10 arms. And if he wants to give you something, you can't stop yourself from getting it. And if he wants to take things away, you can't keep him from taking it. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, so I think it's time to end. Thank you very much. All glory is to his divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, ki jai.
His Holiness Krishna Maharaj ki
Uh,
will continue tomorrow. Maharaj will continue with the stories. Tomorrow morning, we'll have picnic